It's funny how we find treasure in unexpected places. Take this place, for instance. It's a level piece of land just east of Calgary, Alberta. But in some people's eyes, it's an absolute jewel. For this is an airport, and to a handful of pilots and aircraft owners, it's among the most treasured spots on Earth. Welcome to the Chestermere Kirkby Aerodrome, a small, simple airfield in the shadow of the Canadian Rockies, and the launch point for 1,000 adventures in the sky. Bob Kirkby is the man who forged this jewel in 1991. He built the airport and then generously decided to share it with others.
My intention was to put in an airstrip and a small hangar for my own airplane, which I did. And it wasn't more than 6 months later than a couple of pilots came by and asked if they could keep their airplanes here. So I started thinking, well, maybe I should start making it available to others, and I actually started building some hangars and renting them out. It's become an aviation community here. We have a lot of pilots who keep their airplanes here, and we have a lot of pilots that fly in, and it's become one of the primary grassroots aviation airstrips around Calgary.
Grassroots flying, as Kirkby calls it, is the whole purpose of this airfield.
And grassroots aviation is people flying basic airplanes, many of them vintage aircraft that have been around for 40, 50, 60 years. And it's staying out of controlled airspace most of the time, just flying around for the sheer pleasure of flying and being in the air.
There's no asphalt, there's no pavement, there's no radar, there's no flight service station, there's obviously no control tower. All that stuff is attractive to me.
Flying out of this airstrip where it's under the control spaces just meets my needs. When I want to go somewhere and I don't want to talk to anybody, I can just fire up out of here, take off, and I'm as free as a bird.
One of the best things about Kirkby Field is that the runways are grass. Grass runways are special for pilots. They're somewhat rare, they're more forgiving than pavement, and they help pilots' egos by permitting smoother landings.
I do know that this airport has had a reputation for having the smoothest runways of any of the privately owned strips.
Kirkby Field is also close by for many pilots living in Calgary's large metropolitan area. That's an especially appealing factor for recreational flying.
The pilots that are hangared here and tie down here, most of them live not far away, and they have a convenient place to keep their aircraft.
Where I live, in regards to Kirkby Field, on a nice summer night I can finish supper and say, hey, let's go flying. Right? And it's a 15 to 17 minute drive from your worst case scenario, so it's close. And then of course, so why wouldn't you, is the question that often crops up.
So what about the flying that goes on at Kirkby Field? The planes that live at Kirkby's, numbering 20 or more, include ultralights, home-built aircraft, and certified planes built in factories. They are as varied as their pilots and fly as slowly as 50 miles an hour or as fast as 200. Some date back to the 1930s and 40s, while others were built by their owners only a few years ago.
I really like biplanes. I'm on my third biplane now. I guess I'd have to say my Cherokee is probably my favorite. I've had that the longest. I've spent most of my flying time in that airplane, so I'd have to call that my favorite.
Bob and the other pilots flying from here have ventured all over North America, to the Pacific and Atlantic coasts of Canada and the US, to the Canadian North and Alaska, to the Caribbean, and to the American border with Mexico. Over the years, the field has seen a vast array of aircraft either based here, visiting from other airstrips around Canada and the US, or just passing through to points far beyond. Kirkby Field doesn't only benefit the aviation community. It's also an asset for the cities of Chestermere and Calgary.
We get a lot of people from around Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba that fly into this airfield for the purpose of visiting family and sometimes doing business.
With this airfield, Bob Kirkby has built more than just a place from which to fly. This is much more than just a collection of airplanes and hangars. For the pilots here at Kirkby Field, this is an integral part of their lives and community.
And I love the camaraderie. I love the guys on this field. I don't know if that would happen at Springbank or, High River even. I'm not even sure if that camaraderie is there.
And everybody is always willing to give a hand out here, which is nice. There's from the newest person to the oldest person on the field, whether you fly a lot or not so much, everybody has something to contribute out here, and that's what I like. You can always get something from somebody, and it's a friendly environment.
It's the way pilots seem to be, because they all have a similar passion.
And it's just the whole atmosphere of it. And the day that if this place ever closes is a sad day for me, because it's part of my home.
I can find the runway in the distance. My GPS never lets me down. I know the circuit. I just feel that it's my home.
To be above the everyday hustle and bustle of what goes on the ground, it's very peaceful. Brings me a lot of peace and joy when I'm up in the air flying my airplanes.
I've always missed, just the low and slow aspect. I really don't want to go anywhere anymore. If I do, that's okay. But for the most part, not talking on the radio 500 feet off the trees doing 75 miles an hour is just fine with me. And that's what's fun for me.
And then, when the adventures are over, when the pilots have to leave the sky behind and it's once again time to land, Chestermere Kirkby Field will be there, that unexpected jewel on the approaching horizon. It will once more offer up its smooth grass runways, its welcoming friends, and a place to prepare for the next flight. It will be a field to come home to.